allegiance, please. And I believe the flag, Darren, I'm sorry, the flag was, I don't know who's near the flag.
Lori, you have the flag ready?
I don't have the flag ready.
Okay, no worries. We'll go back to that. Let's go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Okay. Trustee Carasali,
Here.
Trustee Carey,
Here.
Trustee Chaplin,
Here.
Trustee Farahi,
Here.
and Trustee Gianoli. Here. Trustee Jay,
Present.
Trustee Rose,
Present.
Chair Safraza,
Here.
and Trustee Sperber.
Here.
And Lori, you just let me know when you have the flag ready.
Trustee Carey is showing a flag for us.
Wonderful. Thank you, Trustee Carey.
Oh, there you go.
We're going to have you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please, Vice Chair.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, moving right along, we will get into public comment. Do we have any public comment?
We have no public comments at this time.
Anyone out there who wishes to speak? Let us know. All right, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment period. And moving right along, item number 3, approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Richard J. second.
Okay, I believe trustee, I'm sorry,
Chaplin.
Chaplin made the motion, and then who made the second? Trustee Jay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Approval of the minutes from both the board workshop from January 14th, 2021, and for the regular board meeting. Trustee Rose, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
All right, we've got a motion to approve.
I'll
And
second that, Trustee
second.
Gianoli.
Janoli, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Okay, anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, we're going to go to the president and CEO's report, including Ted's tips.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. And good morning, trustees. It's great to see everybody. Would like to start off my CEO report with our monthly safety tip from Mr. Ted Ohm. Ted, it's all yours.
Great. Can everybody hear me okay?
Can hear you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Ted.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Good morning, Madam Chair, trustees. This month's safety tip is about burns. We are currently at the end of the National Burn Awareness Week, put on by the American Burn Association. More than 75% of burn injuries occur in the home. Unfortunately, given how much time people have been staying and working from home, I'd bet the numbers for last year will be a little higher. First tip is check your water heater. Make sure it's set for 120 degrees or less. If you have a water heater that doesn't have the degrees on it, that would be slightly lower than medium. Of course, never leave your children alone. These things can happen in an instant. I've seen the devastation personally that this can bring on a family, and the results of the coping methods that they use to move forward really wasn't a good thing. Here's one I never really thought of. Use the back burners on your stovetop. Turn the handles to the side and the kiddos can't reach the handles. And lastly, if you remember, we talked about a 3-foot safety zone around your oven during Thanksgiving. Now that, we still have some weather coming, but I know some people are doing barbecues still, and everybody's going to start getting ready here to do some camping. So keep that 3-foot safety zone around your campfires and your barbecues as well. And that ends the safety tip for today. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Ted. Appreciate it. Madam Chair, members of the board, as usual, you have my monthly CEO report that is loaded with lots of facts and information for you as you would like to peruse that. My comments this month, I will just hit a few things, mostly around my external facing efforts since we last met. And a number of presentations now that I'm being requested to make. And so most recently at the RSCVA board a couple of weeks ago. Yesterday, I presented to the Chamber of Commerce, and next month I'll be presenting to Washoe County Commission. All of these requests and some others that we're fielding reflect a growing interest in how are we doing as an airport? What are our traffic numbers looking like? How are we doing financially? And what's the outlook for air travel this spring and this summer? And so it's a great opportunity to talk about all the flights we still have, how we've been able to hang on to all 10 of our airlines, and highlight some of the routes that have come back in the fall and are programmed to come back this spring, and really start to generate hopefully some awareness and enthusiasm that we want to see people flying again. You know, the airlines are really starting to point towards the Memorial Day timeframe as we get through a lot of the vaccination effort and hopefully see people flying again. And we know there's pent up demand. Actually, our numbers today and tomorrow are pretty good. Just on a 3-day weekend, flights are being oversold again. I didn't think I would see that again anytime soon. And I know we had it this morning where they're offering those vouchers for you to rebook. So we hope to get back to a lot more of that. But these presentations are a great opportunity to update on what's happening. Along that same theme, earlier this week, I had my first meeting and visit with President Sandoval from the University of Nevada, Reno. Just a great conversation. Glad to finally get a chance to meet a man who seems like a legend here in Nevada, and what a really powerful force for UNR. And we talked about a lot of the things that we can collaborate on, whether it's internships or research, artificial intelligence, their business tools, and how we can use that, and understanding our changing consumer. There's just a lot of opportunities, and it'll be a challenge to probably prioritize, but there's certainly interest and desire on both sides to form a more stronger partnership and multiple layers of our organization. So I'll be working on that with President Sandoval and his team, and lots of things to look forward to there. Additionally, I'm having informal media visits this week with RSCVA President Charles Harris. The intent of these visits is to really kind of make the rounds as the two new guys in town tasked with leading a pandemic recovery, which of course we have never been through before, and really trying to speak with one voice in terms of getting seats in the market and then getting people in those seats. It's not enough just to get the flight, right? It's a very symbiotic relationship, and that we need RSCVA to be really successful. We need to help them, and then we need to do our part to bring the seats to the market. So it's helpful to have the media conversations for them to understand how this works, just backgrounding, not interviews, that sort of thing. So great opportunity again to really focus people forward, focus on what it's going to take to climb out of the hole that we're in and start building enthusiasm. And on the theme of new air service, as you're all aware, we announced just in the last couple of days our new nonstop to Charlotte on American. You know, and I've told you a number of times that air service is more volatile than it probably has ever been. And we've seen some markets come to us that we weren't expecting, whether it was Jackson Hole or Orange County or Palm Springs. Here's one that we've been trying to get for years. And all of a sudden last week it showed up, and we haven't had a new destination from American in almost 20 years, I'm told. So it's just, again, a fascinating time for air service. And this is ultimately the litmus test, that you get a route like this, you get these seats. Now, what are we going to do with it? And that is really job number one, is to get an attractive route like this, a great East Coast hub, You can get to so many destinations from Charlotte and ultimately Europe when Europe is truly open again. It's an attractive hub to fly through versus some of the more challenging ones up and down the East Coast. And so I hope we're successful with it. You'll see us trying to build enthusiasm for that, but we're grateful that American has made that decision, and hopefully we can get it beyond seasonal. So lots of external facing activities and starting to feel more enthusiasm and interest in the airport and our air travel, and we'll continue to push those messages out as hard as we can. Madam Chair, that completes my CEO report. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Darren. Just a couple questions on that. Usually the CEO does make the rounds to all the local jurisdictions with the board members from those jurisdictions. So I think that's great that you're going to the county. Probably should hit City of Reno and Sparks as well. And I'm very excited about the joint effort with Charles from the RSCBA. I think that's a first with the two. So I just want to compliment you on you and Charles for doing that with both the media groups, because I think that's important, that coordination with our tourism industry and airline service.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate that. I'd like to go to the board, see if they have any questions, and also board comments for updates about what you're all up to and doing. Any questions for the CEO?
No, I was just going to make one quick comment. I've been sharing, as a member of the Executive Association of Reno, I've been sharing all of our new flights that we've been getting. And I'll tell you, the excitement is really building over there, especially the one with Charlotte, that once it hit the news, I shared it with everybody and I got a few feedback from that. So they're very excited about the airport. I shared the stellar aviation information with them, and they are very excited about that. One thing that we're going to be having coming up in just a little bit, and I see it's already online, is Richard Brong. He's going to make a presentation to us, but this presentation we made to the users group, and it was very well received. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. So other than that, Darren doing a fantastic job. The community really is impressed. So let's keep it up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Carol, any updates from Tahoe? I always like to board.
Thank you. Actually, there are a couple of updates, really. The NHL is in town and
Yay.
building a rink on the 18th fairway of Edgewood, Tahoe. So, and I know that there will be a couple of planes coming into the airport. I know Hassan has been helping coordinate that, so I appreciate the airport's support. Most of these people, most of the NHL staff have never been to this region. So it's amazing for them to see, not to see them because we haven't seen them yet. They're in lockdown for 7 days, so they're doing their protocols. But anyway, so the rink is being built as we speak. And the games are set for Saturday and Sunday of next week, as long as weather and everything else agrees, and we'll probably see some incredible views of the lake and of the region. A couple of really good stories. So I don't know, yay Golden Knights. That's the home team. So I'm trying to remember their names and what they do, but hockey is not. Actually, I was talking to one of these reporters the other day, and I have to tell you, I'm looking at the Zoom thing and I'm seeing an NBA basketball, photo behind me and going, well, that's a faux pas. The other thing that might be interesting to you is that the Tahoe Douglas Visitors Authority actually did interviews for their facility operator last week. So we have a couple of finalists in that. They will operate the event center, which will break ground for phase 2 in May. So we had a very competitive field, and we're really excited to bring them on early so that they can help us with some of the logistics of opening an event center. And one of the things that I had requested that be included in the RFP is their sustainability efforts and their workforce training and career program. And so we'll see these folks hit the ground with an eye on bringing up our regional, talent in the hospitality area. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Carol. Daniel, Nat, I'm going to extract today from board members. How's it going with gaming? Anything to update?
Now, with respect, I'll let you go first.
The update I have is that we're still in business, so it's morning, and that's a positive update.
That is a positive update. Any word on capacity reopening or anything like that
No, the
today?
governor is supposed to announce something today.
So, well, fingers
Maybe
crossed.
he'll announce a closure. You never know.
No. All right, Daniel, anything to update?
Bite your tongue, Nat.
Yeah, bite your tongue.
No, nothing beyond that. Thank God we're open, and again, just praying that the vaccine dissemination accelerates and we're able to really see the numbers start to decline. I mean, I think everyone's in a holding pattern right now. We've kind of gotten used to this new normal, but I think the initial jolt of being able to reopen is gone now, and people are now at a new normal that's not as strong, obviously, as it was pre-pandemic. So I don't think we're going to see any real significant improvements going forward until the case counts really drop and people are more comfortable going out.
All right. Sparks, Art, Sean, any updates from Sparks? No?
Here's an
Jennifer?
update from Western Village and Sparks. We're open over there today, too. That's a good sign.
All right. Thank you, Nat. Thank you. Thank you. Jennifer, small business?
We're still waiting for people to reopen. I mean, we really thought they'd be reopened by now, but unfortunately, we just haven't seen any progression whatsoever. So as soon as the vaccine gets out there, we're crossing our fingers that everything will come back as normal.
Lisa, anything to add?
No, just curious what the governor will do tonight. We can take odds on him letting restaurants open to 50% for the Valentine's weekend. There's my bet.
I'm hoping for that good news too, Lisa.
Yeah.
Hey,
Madam Chairman, the big question is, what is the definition of the quote new normal? That's going to be the game changer one way or the other.
Yeah.
I just want to say, Daniel, thank you very much. I went and collected my winnings yesterday from the Super Bowl. So, you guys were very great. And thank you. The money went into my pocket.
God bless you. Glad you won.
Well, guys, I'm going to be the optimist, I guess, with comments. Hospitalizations are down, cases are down. The hospitalizations are way, way down. The vaccine is starting to trickle out there, and I'm thinking good thoughts. I think we're going to start climbing out of this, and I feel fortunate for the Reno Tahoe area. Things are still, construction still happening. Our airport is in much better shape, I think, as Darren has said, than some of the other markets and regions. And just want to say how blessed and grateful I feel to be included in the airport, and take this opportunity to thank staff for really helping us through this difficult time. Everyone at the airport, I think the entire airport family for, we're just, going through it. And Anne, thank you. Everybody who's been helping with the team. And Darren, I think I say this every month, I'll say it again, just grateful to have you on board to lead us through these challenging times. But I feel like these announcements are very good news. I mean, Wyoming, North Carolina. So guys, we're going to get through this, and I'm feeling positive and optimistic. So thank you all. And then one of the other comment for Lori, there was an email. So I always like to get this done because it's so hard from staff. Can everyone just check their calendars? We need to have a meeting, and I think we're looking at the 22nd or 23rd, I believe.
Chair, Madam Chair, I have
Yeah.
received responses from everyone.
Oh, okay, except
Yeah,
for me.
so-
So I'm like behind the curve, huh? Okay,
Well,
so what are we looking
I
at?
got your response. So I'm checking the calendar and when most people are available, and I'll send out the best date and time.
So do we
that I
have, I
have.
think you said 23rd. Can everyone just look, Lori, I'm trying to help you out here. The 23rd, is everyone available at 10 a.m. on the 23rd?
Yes,
I'm good. Let's book it.
yeah, let's get it on the calendar.
I'm not available that time.
Okay, what
Yeah,
about,
Sorry, I think the only one that wasn't available at that time was Art. And then if on the 22nd, most people were available from 10 to noon, except Carol and Art.
Yeah,
What about a
we've got
different
another
time on the
board meeting.
23rd?
yeah, a different time on the 23rd? Art,
No, 23rd, I can't do it.
Okay.
What
Only
about the
22nd in the
22nd?
after.
I'm open the
22nd in the afternoon, I
22nd,
said
whatever.
after 2, I can do it on the 22nd, but that's the only time. That's fine. You have a meeting without me if you can.
yeah.
No, we have to have you there.
Yeah, okay, so the 22nd, can everyone do 2 o'clock on the 22nd?
I can do it.
Just
I can
hard
do
for
it.
Lori, so I'm trying to,
What time did you say, Jess?
2 o'clock on the 22nd.
Let's
Yes.
book it.
All right,
Perfect.
Lori, there you go.
Okay, 2 o'clock on the 22nd. I'll get
Nice.
that on, I'll get an
Nice.
invite out.
90 minutes, correct?
Yeah,
90
I mean, it may
Okay.
not go that long. I just wanted the board to be prepared for, so 2 o'clock, okay. 22nd, that is. All right. Oh, Anne, are you available?
Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of important. Sorry. All right, so 22nd at 2. All right,
Yep.
so we're gonna move along. Thanks, guys. On to our next agenda item. And I believe, Richard, you have a introduction. There's nothing on we don't have any awards or recognitions, and there's no consent items. So I believe you have an introduction for us. So
Yeah,
Trustee
I'm gonna,
Day, you have the floor.
yeah, thank you very much. I am going to introduce Richard Brong, who's affiliated with Great Basin Aviation. He's been really helping us out with noise and helping, we've had a few people who have expressed concerns over noise out there. But in order for them to understand, we needed to explain a lot of stuff to them. So he made a presentation, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but we have not heard anything significantly as far as complaints from these individuals since Richard made his presentation. Just a few things about him. He's been a pilot since 2006, holds various certifications, UNR graduate, or University of Nevada. We don't say UNR anymore. Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, taught science, Washington County School District, volunteered Civil Air Patrol, just a ton of stuff. So rather than going over everything, I'm going to just turn him over to him and let him make his presentation. And Richard, thank you very much for making this presentation to us. I think it's going to be valuable.
Sure thing. Thank you all for having me here. Good morning to all of you, and it's a pleasure to be here with you and to be a part of the airport community here in Reno. So definitely, yeah, noise is obviously something that if anybody's concerned about anything airport related, that comes up from time to time. And in the world of what we call general aviation, noise is kind of a big deal, whether it be a larger airport like Reno Tahoe or some of our smaller airports around the area. I'd like to share with you all the presentation that I did for the noise advisory panel. So let me get this queued up here real quick, and I'm going to be sharing my screen. Thank you for permission to do that. And let's see, like so. So you should be seeing that coming on up. If not, please let me know. If you do have questions while we're going, feel free to ask at the same time as well. I've got a little moment at the end here and we'll take questions as we go along. So the issue or the issues I'd like to discuss in here is something that a lot of you may already have some awareness of, but in general, we use the term general aviation, and it's important to define that and give a little bit of a good understanding towards what that is, not just for the general public, but sometimes even within airport communities, there's a little bit of a dissonance between general aviation and commercial and things like that. Of course, we need to know why little airplanes, or big airplanes too for that matter, but why they make noise. And along with that, there's obviously a good set of regulations that we all need to follow. And in particular, when we need to follow those regulations, how we work within a towered airport environment or a non-towered environment. Of course, safety is always at everybody's forefront with anything aviation. And of course, no airport wants to be a bad neighbor. And so how can pilots, both of small airports, big airports, small planes, big planes, what have you, how can they be a good neighbor for the communities around them? So just starting out a little bit, what is general aviation? Well, Reno Tahoe International obviously serves several airlines, and that is not general aviation, nor is military. However, when you take those two things out of the aviation picture, literally everything else pretty much is general aviation. This could be small aircraft like the one you see here in the foreground. That's actually my bird. It got a night at the Ritz during a thunderstorm last summer, sprung for a hangar night with a hot date there, I guess. But in any case, as we go through and look at the aviation sector in general, GA or general aviation is a major component of aviation in the United States. Most aircraft that are registered in the US are flying under general aviation. And even beyond that, most pilots are also general aviation pilots. This can be everything from hobbyists to career professionals and literally everything in between. If it's something that can be done by aircraft, and it's not associated with airlines or military, there's a very, very good chance that it falls into the realm of general aviation. That, of course, includes things like our medical flights and so on. It's quite a large sector of the aviation in general. Aircraft are inherently somewhat noisy. And while in their specifications, it is important that the engineers that put these things together do what they can to reduce that noise as much as possible. It's not possible to make them completely noise-free. Interestingly, it's not the engines as such that are noisy. It's basically that spinning hunk of metal out front, or sometimes wood, that we call the propeller. Just a little bit of science behind it. The tip of that propeller is spinning it near the speed of sound. And it's the little shock waves that creates that cause the noise. That is what often is heard as airplanes are flying overhead. That drone that if you're a pilot, you look up and have to stare at it for a minute. But if you live close to that and have to listen to it all the time, that's something then that you kind of go, oh, here we go again. Small plane engines are meant to be run at near maximum power most of the time. And the reason for that is so that they are producing enough thrust to help keep that airplane aloft. Yes, you can slow the engine down, and in doing that, produce less noise. But then when you slow an engine down, what happens is the airplane is going to be coming down with it. Of course, it doesn't just fall out of the sky, but you cannot fly an airplane slow, really slow, quietly and safely all at the same time. And so just by their very nature, they're going to be producing some noise whenever and wherever they are. And if it happens to be over a community environment, then there you go. So that being said, hopefully the animation that I have here is showing up for you all as well. Good, I see a couple of head nods. This is one just showing a time lapse of aircraft coming and going out of Reno Airport here. And this was several weeks back, but this could be typical of just about any day, to be honest with you. And sometimes even, take this and magnify it 2 or 3 or 4 times within a given period of time during the day. All pilots, regardless if it's airline or if it's small pilot in a single engine airplane, whatever, they must follow rules of the road, just like when you're out driving. We call these the Federal Aviation Regulations, or what are commonly and friendly like known as the FAR to pilots. This is essentially our rule book. It's a very thick document, and we must obey these rules as we're out there. And primary and forefront in all of that is so we don't have incidents where we're conflicting in airspace and running into people. The biggest reason Reno Airport here has a control tower is because we have enough traffic to warrant the direction of traffic in and out even further. And so when there is a tower active at an airport, such as Reno, Truckee, those are the closest ones. And of course, as you go over the hill into Sacramento and things like that, that even more is to have the air traffic controllers directing safe movement of planes coming and going. Non-towered airports, sometimes inappropriately, in my opinion, labeled as uncontrolled. They really are still controlled, but they're non-towered. And in those situations, it's the pilots that go through and sort of manage the flow of traffic, just because the traffic flow is low enough that it's easily done from the air. In all of that, pilots must maintain a high level of proficiency to continue to exercise their privileges. And whether that be just to fly in general, and even more so to be able to carry passengers and the like. To do that, part of that is going up and making sure they are proficient to not only take the airplane off of the ground, but bringing it back safely, of course, is kind of what every flight ends in. And so to do that, pilots must practice. Oftentimes on their proficiency flights, they will get out and conduct what are called touch and go operations, which are simply landing the aircraft and then taking it off again. And they will make several repeated trips around the traffic pattern. And it makes it look like the plane's just out there having fun, spinning around the airport. But each one of those landings is practiced for proficiency so they can make sure and manage the aircraft safely as they're coming into that pattern area. While in the pattern itself, the pilots are obeying either air traffic control instructions or the published procedures for a given airport, according with the federal air regulations and so on, so that they can do this safely and continue to exercise their skills at the highest level possible. As I mentioned, Reno is a tower-controlled airport, and so adding on all of the federal air regulations, now we also have controllers who are absolutely wonderful here, and we need to go in and make sure that we are operating with their instructions as well. The only time we can deviate from those instructions without having to ask explicit permission is when we have an emergency. So there are times, for example, that we may have to circle on one corner of the airport while we're waiting for traffic to come and go, or perhaps extend out over town, or things like that. All of this, again, from that animation you saw earlier, is to keep the aircraft coming and going out of an airport safe and sequenced, so we're not getting multiple aircraft landing on a runway at the same time. So that one kind of is I want to say it's obvious, because it's a juggling act for sure to get airplanes coming from literally all around the country, sequence them in so they all land on the same place within a safe amount of time to prevent a conflict. In this picture that you've got here, this is an aerial view just out of Google Earth, but it's showing Reno Tahoe Airport, and the X's that you see on there are kind of outlining common areas in the traffic pattern of where you would find general aviation aircraft, or smaller, I'll call them noisier aircraft, but the ones that do, tend to make some of these orbits around the traffic pattern. When they're completing this air work, it again seems as if they're doing repeated flights over and over a particular area. But if the aircraft is relatively slow, they need to conduct these operations within gliding distance of the airport, and also at a specific height above the airport. And the reason for that is again, safety is always at the forefront of every pilot's mind when they're flying. And even though engine failures are exceptionally rare, we still prepare for that. And so the reason we have to kind of be in close and low is if you do lose an engine, you can then glide on into the airport and bring it down safely. Again, published procedures and adding on air traffic control instructions as we go through that. Well, when you bring in the whole aspect of safety and then also integrate that with being a good neighbor, I don't know a single pilot anywhere in the years that I've been flying that wants to go out and be a nuisance to the public. The short of it is that, especially with smaller airports, this is the kind of thing that gets airports closed down. And there are numerous instances of that around the country where an airport isn't too popular because of whatever reason. And eventually the pressures mount enough to get the airport shut down. Now, Reno Tahoe International is a big airport, and I seriously doubt that's ever going to happen around here. But still, we do have to, as Richard was mentioning, we do have to deal with our neighbors close by and do what we can to make sure that not only do the pilots maintain their skill levels, but also that we're flying and not creating too much of a nuisance for the public. If we were to reduce our proficiency, in other words, not fly or have prohibition on certain exercises around airport, safety would definitely suffer. And then as time goes by, accidents potentially could be increased. There are limited things that we can do as a pilot to adjust our flight paths around Reno or any airport for that matter, but especially with a towered airport, our choices are even less. Because again, we need to be able to work within what air traffic control is having us do, and also within safe flying practices on top of that. What pilots are able to do as they fly is obviously control when they fly. So that's just something, if able to fly at more friendly hours, we'll say, that's pretty easy to do. We can also go to other airports. That said, part of the pilot's proficiency, though, does need to be maintained at airports with operating control towers. And so we can't just leave all the time and come back, because talking on the radio is another one of those things. When you're coordinating with air traffic control, it must be there for proficiency. There are certain techniques that pilots can do to get up and out of the most noise-sensitive areas relatively quickly. But beyond that, we are not, as I've mentioned, just free to kind of fly wherever we want within the airport environment, because it would definitely create conflicts and potentially safety situations that we don't want to get in the way of other aircraft. So as we kind of think about all of that, this is a rather rapid and broad overview of all of this, but just kind of considering small to medium or even larger general aviation aircraft, we have to recognize this as an important aspect of aviation in the country, and very, very strong force economically, serves a lot of major functions beyond just recreation. There's business, there's commerce going on with all of that. Literally every single pilot out there flying started in smaller aircraft, and many of our pilots that are flying commercially in the airliners started out in small general aviation airplanes. A lot of the students I personally am working with now have already expressed interest to go on and eventually be flying commercially down the road, and hopefully a lot of them for the airlines as well. As I mentioned, any aircraft that we have makes noise. And some of that can be mitigated. Some of it is not easily eliminated. Pilots must maintain proficiency and high levels of skill in order to continue to exercise their privileges for carrying passengers and simply just operating the aircraft. Reno, as with any towered airport, requires further adherence to the instructions from our wonderful air traffic controllers. We do have some options to fly quietly, but it won't eliminate the challenge that we do run into that with that. We do our very best when we're out there flying to be respectful of our communities and not do repeated operations over noise sensitive areas. But it is very difficult to eliminate that completely. That said, that's kind of a broad and rapid overview. If any of you have any questions, I would be happy to entertain those and open it up for that.
Richard, thank you very much. Any questions, comments, concerns?
I just want to say thank you. I think the information is very helpful and appreciate what you guys are doing. And just to echo what Richard said, I mean, I've got a few emails about the noise and, you know, the hours. And I know you guys have been, I haven't heard from those in a while. I think Richard, I think you guys have done a good job accommodating and working with everyone out there. So thank you.
Sure, my pleasure.
Richard is on the noise advisory committee, so that's going to help. And we have a meeting next week. So if anybody wants to attend it, you're certainly more than welcome. And we have one individual that we're debating on asking if he wants to serve on the committee as well. So let's see what happens.
All right. Anybody else have questions? Thanks again. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. And again, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along. Let's go to item 9.2. And that is for the landside services agreement. And I know you guys heard this in the planning committee. Lisa, I didn't know if the board needed any feedback or questions that weren't addressed at the committee. If you guys want a full presentation or you just want to go to questions or motion. Don't all speak at once.
I thought the presentation was great. I'm very comfortable with it. You know, I'm only speaking for myself, but the other members.
Yeah, we had a full quorum at the Tuesday meeting, so.
Right.
All
I want to
right.
make you, having been on both of those committees and having lots of these presentations twice in the past, we'll make you do it again. But are there any highlights that are worth sharing from the presentation?
Ask.
Maybe the fuel storage that would maybe just review that, because I thought that was kind of interesting as to what we thought, what is there, you know, what it's going to take. That was probably the biggest point I got out of this.
So the item we're talking about is 9.2.
Right. Yeah, I think
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
the next one, isn't
That's the
it?
next
I'm
one,
sorry,
yeah.
I'm looking at the wrong page. I'm sorry, never mind, disregard.
It's okay, Liza. I do want, I think it would be good though, if you want to highlight anything for us today from your presentation, that would be great.
Sure. Thank you so much for the opportunity to give you kind of a quick little overview. For the record, Lisa Butterfield, Manager of Planning and Environmental Services. To Trustee Jay's point, I could talk about some of the fuel services in this area, but it's not nearly as exciting as what Stellar Aviation is going to be doing and what will be discussed at the second presentation. But I did want to, and the public setting is a good opportunity for this. I did want the opportunity to kind of stress how unusual our landside operations area is at this airport. And I'm showing an exhibit right here that shows the area that is proposed to be studied by the InterVistas consulting team. As you can see, the area is shown in yellow, and it starts at the south, well, I would say the midpoint of our airport, or National Guard Way. There's a Hertz surface lot here, as well as a number of facilities, and it extends from National Guard Way north all the way to Vassar Street. And this area in yellow is over 144 acres. Typical airports, their landside operations area focuses on ground transportation and the connectivity of passengers and their baggage to the airlines and how they get to the road networks. But our landside area also includes, especially to this north area right here, quite a number of facilities that do not have a specific airport purpose. These are buildings that the airport owns, and we have provided under lease to tenants in the community. There's a number of commercial businesses in here, everything from auto repair shops to a charter school. And these leaseholds are critical to the revenue generation of the airport. These are some of the businesses that were much less impacted by the pandemic, for instance, than our airport tenants, our typical airport tenants, because they weren't based on passenger numbers and passenger utilization. So maintaining these non-aeronautical tenants and the ability for them to operate in the community on our property help the airport's bottom line. So this study is, while it is going to look at things like public parking and taxis and TNCs and autonomous vehicles and the future of ground transportation operations at an airport, it is also going to be looking very, very carefully at what we can do to preserve this very critical revenue stream. So I did want to take the opportunity to tell you folks that there is that extra component on this study. In addition, we are doing something a little unusual in this study. We are asking for the board to approve a professional services agreement amount higher than the proposal from the consultant. The consultant proposed, and I'm just going to shoot really quickly to the slide on the fiscal impact. The consultant did propose a proposal of $254,990 due to the fact that we want to keep this study moving at a very brisk pace, and due to the fact that because of the complexities, we do think that there may be an opportunity to add some scope in order to get some better and more realized results out of this study. We are asking the board to approve $300,000. And that additional $45,000 would be used by the airport as needed to adjust the scope so that we can get a product that is more in line to what we are looking for as complications arrive during the study. Some of those additional scope items could include some expanded analysis associated with pedestrian access from Terminal Way into the airport, as well as looking at some interim parking options in order for us to keep serving the public during construction of future projects, and outreach to our local jurisdictions that should be part of this process. For instance, the City of Reno, who handles Terminal Way, as well as RTC Washoe. So those were probably the two things I wanted to make sure were discussed in this setting. But I'm happy to answer any questions from the board regarding what this study is going to do, what it's going to take, and also just that we are thrilled to be working with InterVistas Consulting, who is one of the most well-known and nationally recognized firms helping airports with landside planning studies. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa, can you just go back to the scope of work that's the original scope of work? Just in there, is there anything, and I think we, I just don't want to end up in a situation like we did with the Conrac. I want to make sure that we're analyzing these things and not in a vacuum. So like the circulation, and I'm glad you said RTC, City of Reno and Terminal, but I think public safety sometimes and gets overlooked, or maintenance operations. I just didn't see that in the scope. So that, and also you just had the City of Reno adopt a completely new code with their Title 18 revision. So I just want to make sure that we're coordinating with those different agencies as we're looking at planning areas, whether it's circulation, the safety issues. I just want to make sure that we're including those as part of the planning study.
Chair Sefaraza, yes, we are including all of those in this 144-acre area. There are a number of, I'll hit maintenance first. There are a number of maintenance and facilities, structures and storage sites within this area. We did outline that with InterVistas Consulting. They're aware of it. For instance, one of the issues we're going to solve from a maintenance standpoint is they have some of their landside equipment that is stored in this building right here, building number 22. And it's obviously not taking care of snow removal activities in this area. Those are the pieces of equipment that are going to the terminal building and the loop road. We cannot drive those equipment on the city streets. So any changes in this area are going to have to take into account maintenance and facilities aspects. We fully expect that they're going to be some of our most critical stakeholders and involved through the process. In addition, public safety will also be included. We have our emergency gate access at the location 46 here, as well as gate 155, which is structure number 28 here. Any facility that's in here, we are going to be reaching out to those individuals as part of this outreach, and it will be critical components. So yes, both of those.
So, okay, great. And that, because that, I believe, Darren, on this, this is our fire crew on site that's responsible for those buildings, correct?
Madam Chair, yes, through a mutual aid agreement with the City of Reno, we also can and do respond to emergencies on our property. So all of those buildings, yes. So it's a really important part of the study, emergency vehicle access, first responder access, as we look at changing infrastructure. And I just want to add on, we've hired a fantastic firm here. I've worked with InterVistas before, and when it comes to figuring out airport landside areas, and they are complicated at every airport, Alyssa has pulled off the near impossible here and bringing this back to us in 30 days. So everything you touched on will definitely be explored, and the external facing piece of this, that coordination, is going to be really important and critical, especially when you're moving fast. And we are going to have to move fast. And so we have to be very deliberate in reaching out and making sure we're including the right partners in this.
Yes, and reaching out early. So appreciate that, Lissa. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, Jessica, I'd like to make a point is we went through this quite a bit, obviously on Tuesday, and I did at the end of last week. One of the things we're going to do, and Darren and I kind of talked this, is every month this we tracked as its own item in the planning and construction. We have agreement to do that. And then obviously the week before the meeting, I'll probably be pulling my friend, Mr. Carey, in to look at it, at some of those items too. We left this thing flexible enough so they could do. Clearly, one of the things that you brought up is the circulation in those. So we want to make sure that we do get, Mr. Carey and I've had some discussions yesterday about getting a traffic engineer in there to look at some, not just talking RTC. So some of those things we're trying to set up right now, but this be fast moving. We don't want to just do it. And the problem we had before, bring it back to the board after we've jumped from one location to another. So we're trying to not have that again, to where those things. And so every month you will see that. And that's kind of the agreements we went through on Tuesday that you haven't seen. That at least you've got 4 members here on this board, four out of the 9 that sit on that subcommittee. So hopefully we can keep that thing where we're all working together on it. And the flexibility in this contract allows them on a time material to do these kind of functions that we need to do.
Thank you. And I appreciate that very much, because if you guys can review that and keep us up to date, the board, that would be great. I'm glad it's on, going to be a standing item on your agenda. So.
Right.
Thank you very much. I think Trustee Chaplin, you have
Thank you. I just wanted to add, and Lissa can correct me if I'm wrong, but I did sit on this RFP committee. And one of the things that impressed me about this particular firm was the number of stakeholder meetings that they were proposing. So, and to Art's point, that public safety issue will be addressed through those stakeholder meetings. I think that they really showed community and airport and other stakeholder outreach as one of the features of their proposal.
great. Thank you. Do we have a motion or any other comments or questions?
I'll make the motion to accept.
We have a motion
at the $300,000 amount.
Second.
Okay, I don't know if we have a second by Jennifer. I'm like, somebody seconded, or Art.
I did second, but it doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion carries unanimously. Now we're on to the tanks. So let's see. Item number 9.3. Lissa, are you up on this one too? Exciting. Are we going to get an update on gas tanks?
Yeah, I'm going to pass the baton to Aurora Ritter.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Trustees. For the record, Aurora Ritter, Manager of Airport Economic Development. And just wanted to note that we do have joining us on the call this morning, Brad Cost, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Stellar Aviation. So we would both be available to answer any questions. Would the board like the full presentation? I just wanted to confirm from the conversation earlier.
I don't think I need one. What about the rest of the board? If you just want to give highlights like Lissa did, unless the board wants a full-blown presentation. I
Highlights
know
would be
you're
great.
dying to
Highlights.
give one, aren't you? No, I
Highlights
think
would be
just
great.
the highlights maybe at the end. You know, I hate being repetitive. I know that's why we have these committees to really get into the nuts and bolts. So if you want to give us the highlights of the ground lease, that would be great.
Absolutely, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
So this item does tie back to the RNOGA RFP that was issued in 2019 for the development of parcels on the east side of the airfield for development of an FBO, MRO, hangars, and other general aviation facilities. Just as a reminder of what Stellar Aviation proposed, they proposed a phased construction approach on both the parcels to the north and the south of the existing Tahoe MRO facility. Their first phase would just be the construction of FBO facilities. The second phase would be the general aviation campus, in which they would propose to build T-hangar, box hangars, the community assembly building, help facilitate the expansion of Tahoe, aircraft wash rack facility, and a building of a brand new fuel farm with both Jet A and avgas and a self-serve avgas station. The RFP did offer to make available some RTA-owned facilities in the meantime while they constructed. And so this item pertains to the RTA-owned GA East Fuel Farm facility. The proposal from Stellar proposed that they would lease this fuel farm for 5 years, and as mentioned, they would construct a new one in the second phase. As part of the use of the existing facility, Stellar was advised that they would have to do a full assessment on the equipment. And that assessment did come back and find that there was some significant issues with the existing equipment, as it had not been used in over 10 years. And so the repairs came back at about $80,000 just to get it up and running. And once it's up and running, they would have to run further tests, and there could be a possibility that they would need to replace one of the tanks, which would then make the investment closer to $250,000. So looking at that amount of investment for a 5-year term, in addition to then having to build a new fuel farm facility, didn't necessarily make a lot of sense as far as being financially viable. And just as a note to the great partnership that we have with Stellar Aviation, they are an FBO on the airfield, and they have to have fuel as part of that. So they have been, with RTA approval, been running a truck-to-truck fuel transfer operation, which basically entails the sole use of fuel trucks to receive, store, and dispense fuel. This is meant to be just a short-term fix, so while we figure something else out. And so we started discussing what it would look like if Stellar Aviation leased on a long-term basis the existing fuel farm. And so that gets us to the proposed business terms. As mentioned before, there would be a minimum investment of $80,000. The proposed term is 50 years, which ties into the phase 1 development ground lease. The rental rate, which was determined by an appraisal, would be 68 cents per square foot per year for the ground, of 50-year total of about $603,000. In consideration of improvements of the RTA-owned facility, we are proposing a one-time rent credit of $6,096, which basically equals 6 months rent. There would be a annual CPI adjustment with a 3% cap and a fair market appraisal every 10 years. And there would also be a midterm refurbishment program required. It's important to note that Stellar would still be building everything else in phase 2 that was mentioned. And the RTA is in support of this program as it would allow the use of an already existing fuel farm on the airfield, as opposed to then building a whole new fuel farm on the airfield. This would allow a second fuel farm to be up and running much quicker than if it had to wait until phase 2 of the construction, and then would allow Stellar to use the anticipated investment of a new fuel farm, which is about $600,000, to be redeployed into some of the other proposed improvements with that phase 2. So again, I think everybody is very familiar with Stellar and what a great partner they've been. As of February 1st, they're now managing the T-hangars on behalf of the Airport Authority. They've helped us attract tenants and businesses, JSX being one of the great ones. They are actively working on the plans and environmental submissions for the phase 1 development, and they just anticipate that FAA submission to be done by the end of March. So moving along very quickly with that. It is anticipated, as mentioned before, that the minimum revenue to the RTA would be a little over $603,000. This doesn't include CPI or fair market adjustments. And so that, Madam Chair, are kind of the highlights of the presentation. Be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from the board? I do have a question. On the 50-year, is that standard? So I just want to make sure I understand. We're going from 5 to 50. So is that, I mean, can you just put that in perspective for me, like best practices or what maybe other airports do? It just sounds like such a long term, but maybe that's standard in the industry. So, and it seems like for 50 years for that little amount of revenue. So, but
sure, absolutely. So Atlantic, just to put it a little into perspective, Atlantic Aviation does have originally they had a 15-year term and then made an investment and got an additional 35-year term to bring them to 50. So it is something that we have done on the airfield before. We also have, it's pretty common for us to do 50-year ground leases. We recently have done a few for properties outside of the airfield, but it ties nicely with the 50-year ground lease that we executed with Stellar for their development, as they would be required to have a fuel farm as part of being able to provide those FBO services. So it is something that we have done in the past. And this is additional revenue that we would be getting in addition to them still being able to perform on all of the other items in phase 2.
And listen, I really appreciate the investment. I wasn't saying that as a criticism. I just wanted to know what the standard practice was. Just 2 other questions. Can they transfer this lease if Stellar isn't Stellar anymore, or it changes? Do they have the authority to do that under this lease agreement since it's a long term, or would that have to come back to the board?
It would require RTA approval in order to transfer it.
Board approval or staff approval?
As it's written now, it is, I believe it's just staff approval, but we would certainly be bringing it back to the board. In particular, with it being a long-term lease, it likely would be a high dollar deal, and we'd want to bring it to the board for approval.
Yeah, so that was just, I just have 2 modifications that I want to make sure in the lease that if there were any change or transfer, that the Airport Authority Board would have to approve that. And okay. I guess the second thing is, I saw the CPI slide, and that totally makes sense. If there's any kind of assessments or fees that come into the future, whether it be public safety or assessments by the state or other jurisdictions, that I don't want to be locked that we can't recover those costs somehow. So, and maybe that's more of a legal question, is we don't know what could possibly come, or if there was legislative changes over a 50-year period of time. So I'm just concerned about capping the CPI if there's other changes that could possibly be made in the future.
Sure, absolutely, Madam Chair. And we actually did take that into consideration and have written into the lease that that we cannot guarantee what those may be in the future, and it would be tenant's responsibility to cover those. So we have taken that into account and have left it pretty open to stipulate that it would be tenant's responsibility should something come up or anything changes.
Can you refer me to that exact language in the lease?
Sure, absolutely. I can get that information and get that over to you if that would be okay. I don't have it in front of me at the moment.
No problem. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And thank you for a great job on this lease. I want a comfort level on those two items. So
absolutely understood.
Thank you very much. Any other board questions on this?
Yes, this is Nat. As a board member, are we here to rewrite this lease? Or are we here to vote on the lease as is based on our employees that have put it together? And I'm sure it covered everything. I'm not sure which. We're going to rewrite it. Let's have input from every board member and rewrite the lease. What are we doing?
I'm not advocating to rewrite it. I just think I want to see the specific language, Nat, that covers the airport. So I just want to see the specific language in the lease. And I just want a clarification on whether it's board approval or staff approval. And I think what we're being told by staff is that because of the dollar amount, that it would be board approval. So it's not a rewriting of the lease, it's clarification. And I would like it clarified so I have some comfort level when we're doing a 50-year ground lease.
As a member of the Finance Committee, I think we all were aware of what the lease stated. There were no dissents. It was voted on by 100% approval without bringing up all your thoughts. So if we're in the Finance Committee now or the board, so we should start rewriting leases and questioning everything that all the various departments in the airport do, or are we here just to be board members?
I mean, I'm not sure that's fair. Not. I mean, change of control provisions are pretty standard. I don't know. Again, I'm not going to pretend to be the airport expert, so I'll defer to Darren and staff. Do you have any concerns with the lease as written? Do you agree that the points brought up by Chair Sferrazza are worth consideration, or you have no concerns?
Is that to me, Trustee Frahi?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. I was going to jump in here anyways. Madam Chair, I think your clarification points are perfectly okay. I'd like to have the board approve this as recommended if possible. We'll send you the clarifying points. Your question around 50 years is a fair one. It didn't used to be that way, and the FAA has really changed their position on that as investments in airports have gotten bigger and bigger from the private sector, and they need to amortize those investments. Plus, in general, airports don't like to be responsible for fuel farms. It comes with a liability. Right. And so long-term tie-up of a fuel farm is something I certainly do support. But the points around future, language in the lease that gives us flexibility, we can certainly get you that. And as we will talk about next month, in terms of revenue contracts, which is what this is, the CEO has certain authority levels, and beyond that, all revenue contracts will come to the board. So if this were to be assigned and need to be transferred, and we're talking about more than 5 years or more than $100,000, or both of those, actually, it's going to come to the board for your approval either way, whether it's a fuel farm or a hangar lease or anything like that. So we're working on clarifying that language. We're going to bring that to you next month so everybody's clear on that. So hopefully that answers this. I appreciate Nat's support of the staff. We're trying to create as much flexibility in the leases for our needs as possible. but we'll get you the answers to your questions for sure.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with the 50 years. I just want to know what the practice, and
Yep.
obviously with this substantial investment, I wouldn't want to make a substantial investment without having, lease terms that are favorable to both sides.
Absolutely. Yep.
Any other questions?
Move to approve. This is Nat.
We have a motion to approve by Nat. Do we have a second?
Seconded, Daniel.
Second by trustee Farahi. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. We're on to item 9.4, mid-year budget review.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Can you please confirm that you can see my screen at this time?
Yes, thanks, Alex. We can.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Good morning, Madam Chair. For the record, Alex Kovac, Manager of Finance, with a presentation today on the fiscal year 2021 mid-year budget review. The RTA's budget process is governed by the Local Government Budget Act. The current budget for fiscal year 2021 was adopted by the board on May 21st, 2020. Any change to the total adopted budget has to be done via board action. We have an internal mid-year budget review process where staff has an opportunity to bring forward any unanticipated items, present new opportunities, and maybe even realign to some new board priorities that we move forward in the year. There's also an airline agreement requirement that we have with our signatory airlines for a mid-year airline review. We had that meeting with the airlines on December 17th. Sometimes those kind of discussions may result in an increase or a decrease in the rates and charges. For the current year, we propose to keep rates flat, not knowing how the rest of the year will turn out. The slide that you see here in front of you obviously has a table on it, and to give you a sense of kind of what you're looking at here, it's a comparison of the first 6 months of actual results to 6 months of budget, and also the prior year actuals for the same period. Our operating revenues are significantly better than expected at approximately 2.7 million or 15% above budget. Our airline revenue is 8.9% above budget. This is mainly due to the fact that our airline traffic is outperforming budget significantly. Non-airline revenues, approximately 2 million above the adopted budget. A couple of highlights here. Our rental car concession revenues are doing significantly better again than the expected budget. For the first 6 months, 1.4 million or 85% above budget. Our parking operations also producing more revenue than expected, 437,000 or approximately 20% above budget. Advertising revenues are also performing well. A couple of areas that are slightly below budget are gaming and retail. When it comes to our O&M expenditures for the first 6 months, 11% below budget. All of the major O&M expense categories are under budget at this time. Non-operating income, just to give you a sense of what's included here, typically we have interest income, CFC revenues, PFC revenues, and new this year we have the CARES Act funds that we're drawing down on. We're approximately 6.3% below budget, mainly because of our PFC revenues are trailing slightly, and then also The CARES Act reimbursements that we have asked for and received so far are approximately 4.7 million for the first 6 months compared to a 6.5 million budget. We must have a couple of charts, obviously, since it's a budget presentation here. So starting off with the operating revenues to give you a sense of what you're looking at, the blue line represents last year actual results. Black is the current year seasonally adjusted budget, and the green is the year-to-date actual. As I mentioned earlier, year-to-date operating revenues, 20.7 million, approximately 15% above budget. However, we're still 31% below last year actual results. Operating revenues, 19.9 million spent so far, 11% below budget and 10% below last year's results for the same period. We still have approximately 23 vacant or frozen positions at this time, which results in some significant personnel-related savings. Our airline activity for the first 6 months, in-plane passengers, approximately 480,000, 29% over budget. Again, what you heard here a second ago on revenues were trailing behind last year. More significantly here, 59% less plane passengers so far in the first 6 months. Landed weight, 12% over budget and approximately 36% below last year's results for the same period. We do see a big difference when it comes to the passenger airlines. However, when we look at the landed weight carried by cargo airlines, there's not a big decrease compared to the prior year actual results. It's actually in line with what we have seen in prior years. The cost per plane passenger or signatory cost per plane passenger estimated for the first 6 months is $9.33 compared to the $12.80 that was for the total annual budget estimate. Passenger employments, as you can see here, highlighted on the green line, for the first 5 months of the fiscal year, we have significantly outperformed budget. The last 2 months are slightly softer. What you see here with that red star represents our estimate for January results. We don't have all of the airline reports received and tallied in at this point yet, but we're estimating it around 71,000 in-plane passengers for the month. Our annual forecast was 946,737 in-plane passengers. Not knowing what's the rest of the year going to look like, we propose to leave that same as the budget for the current year forecast. Some of the budget watch items that we're looking at, obviously the COVID vaccine rollout has an impact on air traffic demand. We're hoping that as more people get vaccinated, our passenger demand and passenger traffic at RNO will continue to increase. There is a Supplemental Cares Act that was approved, voted into law in December. However, the exact amounts that each airport is going to receive, and then also a concession relief portion of that is still pending. We don't have the exact details on how much we're going to get and what the exact rules are going to be related to the Supplemental Act. Our days cash on hand, so cash reserves, are holding strong around 500 days. This is mainly due to the revenues outperforming budget 15% and our operating expenses being below budget. That was sort of the highlight of the first 6 months, and I would like to talk from moving forward about some of the additional budget requests that we have received from our team. However, I would like to stop here for a second in case you have any questions at this time.
Any questions from the board? Thanks, Alex.
Thank you. As I start talking about some of these mid-year requests, I would like to let you all know that we have the internal team of subject matter experts on the line, able and happy to answer any questions that you may have on some of these items. Overall, we have received approximately 3.3 million in unanticipated items at mid-year, operating, fixed assets or equipment, and capital projects. You will see here sorted by whether they're O&M items or capital or fixed assets, ordered in the order of magnitude here. First, air service and cargo development incentives, a request from our air service department, $200,000. The funding source, just so you know, for this is fuel tax. Land size study, you heard Ms. Butterfield talk about the $300,000 contract. This is the $100,000 that we plan on spending in the current fiscal year. $100,000 for a cooling tower filter descaling and media replacement from the building maintenance. This is proposed to be funded through the CARES Act reimbursement. We have a new firefighter position that is currently being recruited for, with an estimate in the current fiscal year of $50,000. Land development consultant for any new land development opportunities brought forward by the Economic Development Department, and 11 additional items that are smaller in magnitude here, ranging from contracted services, consultants, an airfield mechanic, and a property specialist, proposed to be unfrozen at mid-year and filled before the end of the current fiscal year. The total O&M request, approximately $684,000, $506,000 funded internally, and $179,000 funded through the CARES Act reimbursement. Equipment and fixed asset requests, the majority of these were included in the current year budget. Due to the restrictions of travel, we obviously have less in-plane passengers, less airline traffic, so we made some significant cuts in the current year budget compared to what was requested by the various departments. You see here, most of these items are proposed to be funded through the CARES Act, starting with the sanitation truck brought forward by Airfield Maintenance, a 4,000-gallon water truck, $250,000. The two items that are proposed to be funded internally are brought forward by the IT department, 50 wireless access points for $90,000, and the board automation system for $45,000. We also have a tractor, a forklift, bobcat, spray trailer, cardboard baler, and air compressor. All of these items are proposed to be paid for using the CARES Act funds, and they're all replacements for currently owned but qualified for replacement under our replacement program here for equipment. Capital project requests, approximately 1.7 million in total, starting with a CBP roof replacement, 500,000. We also have a couple of pavement maintenance projects, one for the airside slurry seal, 430,000, and the landside slurry seal for 238,000. Also, phase 4 of the building control system replacement for 327,000. Airfield maintenance is also proposing to replace some of the current lighting with LED lights on the ramp. Wall repair proposed by engineering for 75,000, and also fiber optic cabling brought forward by our IT department for slightly over 30,000. As you see here, the majority of the items are proposed to be funded through the CARES Act, approximately 1.6 million. As I mentioned earlier, a total of 3.3 million in unanticipated funding need identified at this time, 685,000 in O&M, $986,000 in fixed assets and capital projects for approximately $1.7 million. We were able to identify funding sources for all of these items. CARES Act takes the majority of them with $2.6 million. General purpose or internal funds, approximately $457,000. Fuel tax, the $200,000 that I mentioned earlier for air service, and CFCs, $27,700. This was for a QTA waterline repair that was an emergency repair that happened during the year. It was unplanned. Now, with all that being said, and looking at the first 6 months of actual results and looking at the next 6 months, obviously with optimism, our operating revenues we're expecting to be approximately 2.8 million above budget. When you see here the airline revenues, I kept them flat at 14 million. That is due to the fact that we're proposing to leave the airline traffic forecast, both for in-plane passengers and landed weight, to remain flat at this time. We had 5 months of great results at the beginning of the year. However, we're not sure with the COVID vaccine, the return of the traffic demand, we're not exactly sure where we're going to end up being. As a reason, we're proposing to leave that as is. Our non-airline revenues, I mentioned earlier, rental car, parking, doing significantly better. So I increased the forecast there by approximately 2.8 million. Our O&M expenditures are significantly below budget so far for the first 6 months. You saw some of these unfunded, or not unfunded, but unanticipated items actually at mid-year that were brought forward by the various departments. I'm also leaving the O&M expenditures forecast unchanged overall from the budget. Non-operating revenues, you see an increase here. This is mainly due to the CFC fees. Rental car operations are doing substantially better, both when you look at the revenue per in-plane passenger and also the number of transaction days per in-plane passengers. That's the reason we see a significant increase in the CFC fees that we're able to collect. In-plane passengers remaining around 947,000, and signatory cost per in-plane passenger still remains around $12.80, keeping in mind that we still plan on using a significant amount of CARES Act funding in the current year to make sure that the average airline rates and charges remain flat. The budget calendar, just to give you a sense of what we're currently working on, the mid-year budget, as discussed here. We have the internal discussions with the various departments at this time on the budget requested for next fiscal year. In April, we plan on bringing to you the budget workshop. And in May, hopefully the board will adopt the budget at the board meeting on May 20th. With that, Madam Chair, that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any specific questions you may have.
I have a few, but I'm going to go out to the board first. Do we have any questions from the board? Sorry, Alex, you got to take that down just so I can see, or if you guys could raise your hand, then I'll know if there's any questions, because the way the screen is. Anybody have any? Okay.
No questions, just a comment. I was going to say that, obviously the, jumping ahead on this early in the budget season, anticipating, preparing for the worst, hoping for the best appears to be working. So I think we just, keep our nose to the grindstone, keep doing what we're doing, and, we'll get through this in a, good manner, and we'll be stronger in the long run.
Yeah, and Chair Speraza, in the Finance Committee meeting, one of the interesting questions that I asked, I thought to me was, because I just wasn't sure, was how we decided what went through the CARES Act versus what was funded by the airport, and then how much, CARES Act did we start with, and how did this impact that? So, we had a little bit of discussion about that as well.
Thank you. Alex, just a couple questions. Can you put up the CIP, what the requests are for equipment? One of there's a couple things on there, and I would like to get an update from our CEO on the fire truck. I think I bring this up every month. I'm starting to get frustrated. When are we going to get this thing? I think we approved it quite some time ago. What equipment's included in that truck? But we also have put off our police officers. I've heard over and over again, need a police car. I don't see anything in here as we're going through for the request from department, anything from public safety. And we've been told, I mean, this is probably the third year in a row where I've heard about our cars. So that would be the next question. And then this water truck for $250,000, what's the water truck for? What's that going to be used for?
Madam Chair, I'm happy to take that question on regarding the water truck, and I know that we have Mr. Pittman on the line also able to comment on that. It is a 4,000 gallon water truck that the airfield maintenance is using to help the ARF with their operations.
Okay, so the water truck is going to be for, so if, yeah, I'm sorry, don't mean to put you on the spot, Alex. If we could get Mr. Pittman to answer that question.
Yes, this is David Pittman. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Yes, this is to replace a truck that we actually had put together, built, gosh, close to 20 years ago. And these water trucks are used more especially whenever we have to do dust control and the abatement whenever we have the wind events. We also use it for a variety of construction activities. We have plumbed the other truck that we have, and this one is going to be plumbed as well to act as a water tender to support our ARF equipment. So they will actually be able to hook up to this truck and pull that 4,000 gallons from that truck for any type of firefighting capabilities.
Okay.
So this is replacing a very old truck that needs to go away.
Okay, and we're going to make sure that this truck can tie into the fire equipment, that it's equipped correctly.
That is correct. And we've done our other fire truck as well. It has been plumbed to act as a water tender. So both water trucks will be able to support our operations.
Okay, well, that's good news. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then Darren, on the fire truck, can you give us an update on where we are with that?
Sure, Madam Chair. And like you, it's getting a little frustrating, but we are still waiting for the truck to come out of the shop with Fire Trucks Unlimited, who we're purchasing it from. The delay is based on a couple of things. One, their ability to procure specialized parts for it, but also when our team went down there and evaluated the truck, they requested a number of modifications that would make it more fit their needs. And Fire Trucks Unlimited is taking them additional time to either construct or manufacture those requested changes. Mike Brown is working on this for me and looking if there's any of those things we can decide to do without if they haven't started yet, so that we can just get the truck and then decide once we have possession of it, what sort of specialized changes we need to really make and work with a local vendor on it. So right now, still looks like it's March or April before we're gonna get the truck. But we're always, of course, trying to improve that. And we're in pretty regular communication with Fire Trucks Unlimited. They know we want our shiny new object, and they're trying to get it done, the painting and just all of those things that need to be done. So that's the update on the Type 1 fire engine, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Chair Spiraz, if I can ask a question.
Sure.
With this is, just always trying to look to save $1 or $2. Can we use this to renegotiate, perhaps get a little better price because of the delay?
Thank you, Trustee Jay. And that's something I have Holly Luna looking at as to what have we actually paid to date. And, there was an expectation on when it would be delivered. And so is there an opportunity to affect a little bit of savings there? I don't know that there's much, but it's certainly worth exploring because we honestly thought we would have this truck by the end of December. And our team went down there in October and did this evaluation, made these requests. There was certainly no discussion of taking another 3 to 6 months. So there's a customer service element here that I'm keenly aware of. So we're looking into that to be sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, let's ask, because worst case scenario is they say no. Okay, but if we
Right.
don't ask, we don't know.
But I
So
also,
thank you.
that being said, though, I do want to be clear though, Darren, I don't want to get the truck. I mean, as much as I want the truck, also the equipment in that truck is very, very important.
Yes.
So I don't want to eliminate things at the expense of having the truck earlier. If to not have that specialized equipment. So, but hopefully it'll get here soon. I didn't know you had to paint a fire truck. I thought they came painted already. So, but
Well,
sounds like
painted the wrong color.
they
So
painted the wrong color.
no, it's a red truck and airports don't use red ever on apparatus. So it'll get painted to a standard airport color, which is what matches the rest of our fleet. But, you know, there's a debate here of how much of this do we have to have. It's like buying a used car and then having the used car dealer make all the changes for you versus getting possession of it and working with local vendors. There's probably some good lessons learned here in terms of how we would do this next time. But we will walk that delicate balance of making sure it comes with everything that, you know, our firefighters needed to have and all the capabilities and as soon as we can. So I'll hopefully have a better update for you next month, Madam Chair.
Great. And then just the police car, because I didn't see anything, Darren, and I'm on the public safety requests, because I'm seeing all this other maintenance again, and we've gone through this before. I feel like it's deja vu. Do we have anything from police on requests for equipment? Because that is potentially CARES funded as well. So,
Madam Chair, not to my knowledge, most of what you see here are things that were taken out of the budget last year when we were facing a pandemic and we didn't know what we could afford. So we're bringing them back in because we're in a place where we can. I will follow up on the police fleet. That would be something I think you would expect to see in a normal fiscal year budget request and not a mid-year add unless we had a significant failure of a moving piece of equipment. So I'll talk to Chief Field about that and make sure that whatever the need is, it's accounted for in the budget that Alex is working on right now that will be coming to this group. This board will approve it in May and see it in April. So the timelines are very close here. Thank you, Madam
and
Chair.
I appreciate that, Darren, because I've been asking for that before your time, and
Okay.
we have had that request and it wasn't put in the budget. So
Okay.
I do want to make sure that we get that in. And then just my final question for clarification. Can you go back to the, I'm sorry, Alex, can you go back to the, I think previous slide? Yeah, this one here. Are these, because obviously a new firefighter position costs more than 50 grand. Is that just for what's remaining in the fiscal year?
It is. This is for the new fighter position that is currently recruited for. And yes, the 50,000 is just an estimate that will be needed for the rest of the current fiscal year. And to maybe make a comment on Mr. Griffith's remarks earlier regarding the new equipment requests for next fiscal year, we're currently reviewing those and we'll report back on what's included into next fiscal year's budget request for both fixed assets and equipment, vehicles, and all of those.
Thank you. And Alex, I know that's not budget or Darren. I think previous administration, those were just punted back. I don't want that taken the wrong way. I just want to see that in the upcoming budget. And then the land development consultant, I know Trustee Sperber and Trustee Carey had talked about that. What's the role because I think we need this position badly. And I don't know, Tina, who can answer that for me, but what would be the role of that position?
Madam Chair, I think I can take that one, but I know Tina's on if I don't get it all correctly. And this is not a FTE. This is contracted support for Tina's team with all the various land deals we have going on at Stead and Home Gardens, Stellar. There's quite frankly just more work than her team can handle. So this is basically an as needed contractual support with a local firm. I forget the name, but Tina can chime in with that. But to just help get us through this really kind of incredible surge of activity. And as you know, all of the groundwork that goes into bringing a deal to this board and maybe moving these things along in a timely manner so that our potential investors and tenants are not waiting on our ability to deliver. That's really what this $49,000 is intended to do and is helping us with that.
Yeah,
Tina,
and I appreciate that being in the budget, Darren, because you guys are very busy, and actually this is exciting that we need this.
It's a good problem to have, Madam Chair, that we have more deals than we can actually staff right now. So this is probably temporary, but we'll see how it goes. If it's not temporary, that would be good news too. But for a mid-year budget add, this is what Tina's group needs.
Great.
Thank you.
I don't know, Tina, you had anything to add?
Good morning, Chair Sraza, Tina Iftiger, Chief Commercial Officer for the record. Darren is spot on as usual. This is Wood Rogers, and they're providing us support with writing a request for proposals for development out at Stead, the land that we got back from Germany. I'm trying to expedite that. They're helping us with other opportunities as well, and our primary support to Aurora Ritter, as Darren mentioned, President Griffin mentioned, we are have our biggest pipeline of deals right now than we've ever seen in the 11 years I've been here. And I think you probably are seeing that in your profession, where industrial demand is unprecedented. So we're hoping that we can get by with a consultant and didn't want to load up on an extra FTE for this. So this is our goal, is to get to this crunch time. I do anticipate asking for more consulting support or continued consulting support in this area at the next fiscal year budget that Mr. Kovac will present later on this year.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Sorry, it's not showing up.
I can unshare my screen, Madam Chair, if you would like.
Thank you, Alex. That'd be great. Thank you so much. Any other questions from the board? Lisa?
No, just a comment. Just a comment. Of course, we sat through this during the Finance Committee, but I really think everybody deserves accolades who have got on this fiscal issue early and dealt with it early. That we're seeing the results of that now, and staff and everyone who has done that has made our position a lot better than a lot of our counterparts. And the CARES money certainly is a nice cushion to have, but to see that we're able to do some of these add backs and the demand that Tina's talking about, you know, it's very, very interesting, and it's exciting. As difficult as this has been, it's you know, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So I appreciate all the hard work.
Thank you. All right, do we have to take a motion on this one, Anne? Are we accepting, or just presentation? And
And you're muted.
Just a report, Madam Chair.
all right. Moving right along. Darren, anything else?
Sorry, Madam Chair.
That's okay.
My public safety report, that's probably what you're asking for.
No
So,
problem.
Lori, can you bring that up for me? And I will run the board quickly through this month's update. And as becoming pretty standard here in my report, I'm gonna just start with vaccine update. Go ahead, Lori, advance that, please. Wow, my screen is really big. So there's not a lot to report right now in terms of the vaccine. We're waiting, like you all talked about at the beginning of this meeting, for enough vaccine for the county health division to advance through the tiers. We're in almost constant communication every week. Larry Harvey is talking with the Washoe County Health District about where we might be in line. We know they're getting closer to our tier. And so we're, trying to maintain readiness, if you will. The good news is that our first responders are all, I think, this week through their second doses. So now they're on that 10 to 14 day clock, and then they will have achieved full immunization. Anecdotally, Trustee Jay and I were talking about this the other night. We are definitely seeing more of our folks feeling the effects of the second shot, whether it's really extreme fatigue, a headache, or whatever. And a number of them took some time off just to kind of let that pass. And it does pass relatively quickly, it seems like, within a day, and then it's like nothing ever happened. But just for all the rest of us to be mindful that the first shot, we didn't really hear any of that. But on the second shot, it definitely is more noticeable. So the rest of this is mostly just a confirmation that we've continued to receive opt-in forms. As an organization, we have really seen about 70% of our employees opt in to be on the list, so that when they get to us, you'll receive a link with your appointment and to go get your shot. So that's generally a good number. I think that's what a lot of organizations have seen. And of course, we're still strongly encouraging it as an employer. That other 30%, I hope, as they see people around them receiving the immunization, change their mind, and unless they have a health reason not to, make the decision to choose the vaccine, so we can all get to that new normal that we need to figure out. So that's where we're at right now. Optimistically, I hope this month they get to us. And it really just depends on the national level's ability to push out more product. We know the Washoe County Health District can give more shots than they are right now, but they need the product. And of course, we see this story all over the country. In fact, some of those super pods shutting down right now because they don't have the product to push out. So we're all in it together, if you will, and they'll get to us. So that is kind of an update on the vaccine deployment. Lori, next slide, please. A few other just topical public safety issues. First, as I think you're all aware, after the executive order around facial coverings being required in all transportation and federal facilities, the TSA issued a national security directive effective on February 1st that made facial coverings mandatory in all airports, along with other transportation facilities. But of course, what we care about as an airport are airports. And this was not new for us, right? We were one of those airports last summer that made the decision to require it in accordance with Governor Sisolak's directives. In November, we kind of doubled down on that as the infection rate was spreading. We reminded all employees that it was required. The governor was asking both airports in Nevada to work harder at this. And so we have been. And so this is really not new information for the airport community here. And quite frankly, I've been really pleased with the adherence since we kind of reinvigorated that in November. It's hard to find somebody not wearing a mask. Now, the TSA directive is more specific on what a mask is. It's not a plastic face shield. That does not count as a mask. But honestly, people are wearing, one mask, two masks, the N95s, homemade, as long as it covers your nose and mouth. All of those meet the TSA requirements. We have a really good partnership here with Assistant Federal Security Director Chris Stack and his team. They are in lockstep with us. They have some enforcement capability if we were to have somebody who was really deciding not to participate in this. But I really don't see us getting there. It states that did not have a governor's directive, this was a much bigger issue. And I was on a call multiple calls with 100+ airport directors, and some of them really struggling with this because there was no overarching governor's directive. And so this was new for their airports, and pushback and confusion. So I'm grateful that our governor, had the foresight to take those actions and made it easier for us to be ready for this. So that's kind of an update on the facial coverings. I wanted to just take a moment and thank and applaud our first responders and our maintenance team, all of our essential employees out there who worked through what seemed to be a pretty hefty storm for this region. I don't know big storms from little storms here. I can tell you where I came from, this would have shut the airport down for a week probably. So it seemed like business as usual here. I think we had a total of 2 cancellations. Everything else was mostly on time, minus the de-icing delays. Our runways and taxiways were kept open. Everybody was able to get to work, or we put them up in a hotel to make sure they could make their next shift. So it was just a great job by the team. And I just wanted to express my thanks and applaud. Maybe it's business as usual, but it shouldn't be taken for granted. You can see here was the update on the Type 1 apparatus. We talked about that. A couple of police specific items are fantastic. Canine teams are up for their annual recertification evaluations this week. And that will occur February 15th to the 19th. Evaluators from Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas, will be sent here to evaluate and recertify our canine teams and test them in a variety of areas utilizing multiple training aids. So an incredibly important tool in our law enforcement here is those canine units, and this is an important step for them. And then also, this is also the time frame for our annual CALIA, which stands for Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. Annual audit. We are an accredited law enforcement agency, and this is mostly an electronic audit where we give them access to a multitude of files where we document and certify everything that we do in terms of training and administration of a police department. So again, an important week for our team there, but I know they're ready for that. And then to just end on a positive note, for good reasons, a lot of our focus is on public health right now, everywhere in our lives, and certainly in airports. But it's at moments like these that it's easy to lose sight of the other really important core functions that an airport has, and security is chief among them. And our security posture can never change or relax, I should say, due to other factors. And so, we recently were tested by the TSA. You never know when those tests are going to come. They're intended to try and defeat the system. And so I just wanted to applaud employees here at the Reno Tahoe International Airport. We had a couple different attempts where TSA security inspector attempts to what we call piggyback through a door. You take your badge and you swipe through a door, and they try and get through behind you. That was stopped by one of our ground handling employees before they could make it through the door. And then in a different attempt, the security inspector walked around on the ramp without a badge and was immediately stopped by one of our Southwest employees, challenged and turned around. So that is what our employees are trained to do. That is the best form of defense at an airport, is our badged employees and their vigilance, and they're knowing what to do when they see a security violation. So great job to our teams on that. And it takes a village, as they say, to keep an airport safe. And I just wanted to make the board aware of that. Madam Chair, that concludes this month's CEO Public Safety Report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions by the board? Vice Chair
Good job
Carey?
as usual.
All right. And then
Thank you, Darren. Great.
All right. Anything else? You see the meeting schedule? I think we just need the last motion.
Jessica,
Madam Chair, wait, Madam
Raza,
Chair.
real quick.
You have to ask for public comment. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Is there any public comment?
Well, I was going to comment on public comment, so I was just going to say something real quick, then we can go to public comment. But I just sent Lori 2 links to share with the board some really good information regarding COVID. Both of them for a company I deal with. One of them just kind of shows some great information as far as the vaccine. I use it every week in the newsletter I've been sending out for 49 weeks now, so great information. Also sent another report out that Nevada is now number 22 in the nation as far as vaccinations. So we've really kicked it on over the last couple of weeks. So I thought this was great information. I wanted to share it with you all.
Great, thanks, Richard. And Darren, just to follow up on that, and I meant to ask, how's our vaccination rate at the airport percentage-wise?
Our opt-in rate, and for both of those that have received it already and those that are waiting, is right around 70%, Madam Chair. So that
Great.
is actually pretty good when you look at comparable agencies. And I think that number will creep up over time.
Thank you. Great updates, you guys. All right, public comment. Anybody out there on the phone, watching, chat room, let Lori know.
I see none at the moment, Madam Chair.
Okay. So we have no public comment, and I think Ann, are we clear?
Now we're good to adjourn.
All right, this meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Happy
Good job,
Thursday.
everybody.
Have a
Stay
great
safe.
Thank you, Madam
weekend,
Chair.
everybody.
Have
Thank
a
you,
great
everybody.
weekend.
Bye.